Hello and how's it going, everyone? It is Skullzi here with the latest gaming news, rumors, and speculation. Today I have a very exciting video for you all because a wild Bethesda Game Studios man suddenly appeared and started to shout some very exciting things about Starfield. In fact, he is doubling down on other confirmed Bethesda statements which basically paint Starfield as potentially being one of the most ambitious and amazing things in gaming ever, and Bethesda Game Studios are very confident this game will literally blow us all away. And in today's video I break down the most recent official statement straight from Bethesda Town that gets that hype assuming direct control. So let's not waste any more time and get straight into today's content. First off, I'll be breaking down an official update from Bethesda Game Studios design director Emil Peluro, who is also the lead designer and writer of Starfield. This update was posted over on the official Bethesda website on March 29th, 2022, and features Emil being interviewed by, I don't know actually, maybe himself? Or maybe he's being interviewed by a spooky ghost. It's not really specified here, but Emil answers a bunch of questions ranging from some of his favorite memories while working at Bethesda to what the overall process is while working on Starfield. There is a lot of interesting information and discussion in this article as a whole, so I highly suggest you check it out and read it all for yourself. However, today, real quick, I plan on breaking down any information that pertains to Starfield directly, as I know that's why most of you are here and what most of you are thirsting for.
Degenerates. Degenerates.
First up, Emil talks about the overall process of being lead designer and writer for Starfield. Right off the bat, one thing I find interesting is how Emil mentions this process was definitely made a little bit more complicated due to the global pandemic. That shows us that, as many predicted, Starfield was definitely affected by the pandemic just as much as basically every other game during development in the last couple of years was. However, Bethesda powered through all this and are confident things stayed on track. Emil goes into just how much work and time Bethesda paid to building the world and the lore of Starfield even in the very early pre-development stages of the game. They needed an answer to basically every question. What are the major brands in the game world, and how do they fit into the everyday lives of its citizens? What are the different major locations and settlements? What are some of the major characters? And of course, even from a very early stage, Bethesda had a main story and were building a main story early on. Basically, Bethesda seems to have spent a great deal of time not only working on the world building and Starfield's lore, but also making sure the main story of the game didn't feel like something that was watered down or some kind of rushed storyline. Bethesda wanted the main story to have an impact and actually have an inherent focus if people really wanted an interesting and divisive main story, and it seems like the main story is something Bethesda Game Studios could have spent some of the most time actually working on. Next up, Emil further confirms something we already knew a long time ago, that Starfield is indeed in full production, but not only that, the late stages of full production, as primarily right now the game designers are finalizing whatever ideas and stuff they have in motion within the game, and the game testers are spending many hours playtesting every inch of Starfield that they can, pushing the new creation engine 2 as far as they can to hopefully isolate, identify, and fix any of those old-fashioned Bethesda Game Studios bugs like Mama used to make. Emil continues on by saying, good games are played, not made, and this is something Bethesda keeps in mind during almost every game's development process. So it seems like additionally, in the current stage of Starfield's final development phases, Bethesda Game Studios are going back and making sure everything is actually fun to play and that the game provides the best player experience possible. So I don't think we'll be doing any physics equations in terms of trying to determine how to navigate based on the gravitational slingshot mechanics of different planetary orbits or anything like too in-depth. This is gonna feel like a game, even if there is space flight and gravity and stuff. We won't have to worry too much about that simulation, Kerbal Space stuff. This is definitely gonna be a fun game to play, and if it's not fun, it seems like Bethesda will alter it or just remove it entirely, but I do believe there will be a little bit of that simulation in here. It'll just be blended into something that's more palpable to a general RPG audience, because not every RPG player wants an in-depth simulation, for example. Some do for sure, but Bethesda's actually trying to make sure they're not isolating the overall majority of RPG fans here. Now that's not a bad thing, that doesn't mean they're watering anything down, it just means you won't have to do equations, so settle down people before you try to say Bethesda is watering down this game. Basically, Bethesda just wants the player to have the best experience possible, and they want Starfield to be able to provide the best experience it deserves to provide, because they really believe in this game. I personally feel like all this is a sure sign that Bethesda is definitely spending more time testing and fixing bugs than perhaps ever before before, which is a great thing here, and obviously as Starfield is also their first game running on a new Creation Engine 2 framework, there would have to be especially a lot more testing than like usual, so this is a good thing. Great stuff going on here, yay. Next, Emil mentions that he sort of feels like his entire history at Bethesda was kind of like an anime trading montage of him leading up until working on Starfield. He believes Starfield is apparently so grand that, in his own words, you have to know what you're getting into when making a game like this. So again, Starfield is perhaps bigger than we're anticipating here. I think people who are questioning whether there will be like actual manual spaceflight in the game are actually thinking a little bit too low in scope here. That's just me speculationing, though. Next, Emil touches on how Starfield has a little bit of that magical, amazing vibe, even early on in the first discussion stages, like even before they started officially making Starfield, when Emil, Todd Howard, and the Bethesda team were simply just bouncing ideas off one another about what kind of game Starfield would be. Even back then, the game and the ideas just had some kind of magical feel to them, and Bethesda knew that game, that Starfield, would indeed be something special, and this is an overall theme we've heard from Bethesda numerous times, almost every single time they actually talk about this game, and it definitely is a smaller scale than Cyberpunk 2077's Hype Fest, but Bethesda is certainly consistently insisting that Starfield will be something amazing, something truly special. Next up, before we end the video, we get into something perhaps the most interesting. Emil mentions how much of a big undertaking it was for Bethesda to create their first new IP in over 20 years, which obviously is Starfield. They feel like they needed to definitely do something amazing here if they're going to make their first new IP in over 20 years, and that would definitely have to live up to expectations. Emil mentions that this was their vibe very early on in Starfield's development process, which is continuing on something I just said earlier, and although that eventually in every game's development process, you reach a point to where things just kind of seem a little bit disorganized and a mess. Starfield did reach that point, but although Starfield did, like every other game usually does, Bethesda surprisingly was able to just power through that stage, and everything just worked. Once they saw how everything clicked together, and once they saw how Starfield would actually be, and once they knew that this is the game they were trying to make, and they saw it before them, something just blew up for them. I'll just say Emil's own words here. He said, and most of Bethesda thought, oh wow, this is something really special. Players are going to lose their minds. Now we just have to finish it. Players are going to lose their minds. Like I said, Bethesda's definitely not shy when it comes to talking this game up. They believe Starfield is going to be something legendary. But the thing that has my attention is not only do they believe the game will be very successful, but it's going to be something that'll blow everyone away and will perhaps be one of the most ambitious things in a very long time. Those are huge words. Those are what we call ye old fighting words, and if Bethesda just doesn't live up to those expectations, that's gonna be a huge gamble, and it could definitely backfire. But if they pull it off, Starfield will be something people talk about for a very, very, very long time, even more commercially successful as Skyrim. And although it's normal for a game developer to passionately talk up and hype up their game, Bethesda usually never goes this far, which definitely catches my attention here. With this in mind, with Emil's recent mega statement about Starfield that I just broke down, combined with the fact that Starfield does indeed actually have literal potential to be as legendary as Bethesda claims, I'd say Starfield is perhaps one of the most hyped games of all time, and as we get closer and closer to November and Starfield's release date, I believe the gaming industry and community as a whole will be paying more and more attention to Starfield, and eventually Starfield will have center stage almost as early as June of 2022 during that E3 showcase season, perhaps when we first see gameplay. I love Bethesda, and I've been excited for Starfield ever since it was a fire extinguisher trademark, but the truth is, I'm trying to showcase here how Bethesda usually doesn't get this crazy with hyping up a game, and how that combined with the actual information and rhetoric of the game and everything we've seen so far, there is some solid potential for this to be something very, very special and legendary. Bethesda has a huge opportunity to pull off something huge here, and with everyone basically watching at the same time, which will only magnify the success. But with that in mind, the risk is even more increased because if they don't get it right, if there's a bunch of bugs, or if the game falls short, then everyone would instead watch them fail. I definitely don't think they will though. I have the feeling Starfield will be something successful and perhaps even legendary, and I am very hyped. That is everything Starfield related in this update though, and everything I wanted to talk about in this video. Let me know what you think about Starfield down in the comments below. Do you think Bethesda is overhyping this game, or do you think it truly will be something special? Thumbs up if you enjoyed the content, be sure to subscribe to help the community grow, and huge shout out to the following amazing people for supporting the channel and going above and beyond for the community. Get your name added to this permanent future video shout out list by supporting the channel over on Ko-fi, Patreon, and here on YouTube as an exclusive channel member. Links for all this and more are down in the description below, as well as a link for Skullzi merchandise and the Skullzi Discord server. And as always, thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in next time when we're one day closer to Starfield again. It's like a special occasion every time.
It just works.